I'm doing your great work and I cannot come down. Why should the work stop so I can come down to you? That is a great work from 2,000 years ago in Jerusalem, as discussed in the Bible and the book of Nehemiah. Let's discuss how this continues to affect the region and the U.S. and national security today here on the Great Work Podcast. All right, welcome back, Great Work Podcast Daily News. Today is Tuesday, July 30th, 2024, and here's the headlines that I'm following right now. The first is the JD Vance is weird meme. The new headline that Democrats are kind of running with right now is that JD Vance, Trump's vice presidential nominee, is just a weird guy. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz said this. I think virtually every Kamala spokesperson has said this. And Republicans are getting mad and retaliating, saying that the Dems are actually the weird ones. And they're responding with photos of drag queen story hour and all of the Biden administration officials who, are trans or queer, men wearing dresses, that kind of thing. And if I'm being honest, I kind of love this. If we go back a month from now, right after Trump's assassination attempt, Biden called for toning down our political rhetoric. And of course, 2 days later, he resumed his threats that Trump's, a threat to democracy at RNC. Later that week, Lincoln Project, the notable Republican against Trump coalition, put out an ad comparing Trump to Hitler. So they didn't follow their own words, but inadvertently were kind of back there about a month later. This is toned down rhetoric. And if the next 3 to 4 months is just us arguing about which side is weird, I'm totally fine with that. I think it's funny. There's a lot to pick on for both sides, and it's not inherently dangerous. I also think it's interesting to draw between what both sides see as weird. Honestly, it's a chronically online meme. So will average voters who don't go on Twitter or Instagram or TikTok even know about this? Most likely not. But it is interesting to me because it highlights what Democrats and Republicans both think are weird. JD Vance is kind of a right-wing internet troll of sorts. He's anti-seed oils. He's said stuff like that before. And he kind of is going for that incel, women just need to get married thing. And people should just be a part of a traditional family thing. But he also kind of looks like half the white guys you meet around the Midwest. Clearly Kamala is going for single white women who are probably creeped out by 10 guys who look like JD Vance per week on Hinge or other dating apps. So this messaging probably works for them. And on the Republican side, nothing radicalizes a new parent or a moderate Republican like just being reminded of drag queen story hour. So I don't know. I'm all in for the weird rhetoric. I'm kind of all for it. I hope it continues. The next headline, remembering that Trump assassination attempt, according to the Associated Press, the FBI has located and found social media accounts believed to belong to the Trump rally shooter, which espoused political violence and had anti-Semitic posts. So this just came out from Min Kim of the Associated Press right before I sat down to film this. I know you're all as shocked as me to hear that this guy was probably an extremist. There's no way we could have known this, right? The shooting happened 16 days ago, I think. So hard to believe because the media has done its best to bury the story. If you go and Google search right now, assassination attempt, Trump doesn't even come up. They act like the assassination attempts from presidents in the 1800s apparently are more searched than the one that happened 2 weeks ago. And from the jump, it's just been weird. Tons of security failures reported, the sloped roof narrative. It took hours to learn the identity, and then when we finally do, it just turns out that the guy's a registered Republican. Weird things are coming out. We haven't really heard from the parents, which is weird. There are reports that the house was sterile, like a laboratory. There was no silverware, weird things like that. But now we're kind of we're going to learn the truth one way or another. And we're kind of starting to get Easter eggs. The one that the FBI is releasing now seems to have been that he believed in political violence. Again, I know you're just shocked. Based on his actions, who could have ever believed that this guy believed in political violence? And I'm sure you're equally as surprised by his apparent anti-Semitism. And again, let's just be honest, nobody crazy enough to like do something like that has like normal views on Jews. Like nobody crazy enough to like go out and shoot people for a political reason or attend like an Antifa riot. Like none of those people, if you go up to them and ask them what's their feelings and thoughts and opinions on Jews, are they going to be like, oh, you know, just another ethno-religious minority, like nothing to really see there. So my question is, anti-Semitism a bug or a feature within these extremists? Like, why are they all anti-Semitic? Why is nobody shocked hearing that this kid apparently had anti-Semitic beliefs? I'm sure we'll learn more in the coming days, but like, my two things here are like, of course he is. Of course he believes in political violence, right? Did it come from him looking at a bunch of online things saying that political violence is okay? How did he get radicalized that way? Was he watching InfoWars? Was he watching whatever weird left-wing nut job version of InfoWars there is? I don't know. And also, like, we should probably keep monitoring people that are getting to these extremist points, namely Candace Owens, because she's been crazier than ever. And as she gets crazier, she goes down the anti-Semitism route. Like, there's something there. Again, does the anti-Semitism make people crazy, or is it as they become crazy, do they get more anti-Semitic? I would love to know. Next headline is that Hezbollah fired a rocket at northern Israel and killed one civilian once again this morning. So Hezbollah is not deterred. Is anybody shocked? I actually am. I would have thought that by the way they scrambled and backtracked on Saturday, that they would have laid off firing at population centers, at least for a couple days, but apparently not. They fired a rocket at Kibbutz Hagashram in the north and killed one civilian. So nobody's scared, right? Like no Iranian proxy is scared. They do not fear retaliation. If we're going off the headline yesterday that Amos Hochstein leaked the locations of Israeli retaliatory strikes to make sure that Hezbollah would not retaliate too harshly. Hezbollah's probably already moving their weapons caches around and want to make sure to use up a couple rockets that they don't want to relocate. And this is what happens when people are not scared of America. Like, there's no deterrence to speak of right now with Hezbollah. If Israel were to retaliate like they did with the Houthis, after their drone strike on Tel Aviv last week, Israel attacked back hard in portions of Hudaida, taking out weapons reserves, their port, other critical infrastructure like their electrical power stuff and oil refineries. There's not been a single Houthi attack directed at any ship in the Red Sea or at Israel since Israel counterattacked. And that's how you ensure deterrence. You know, shock and awe, massive fires so that people around can see what's happening, and inflicting damage to things that their society needs to function without making the land unlivable. You don't do tons of warnings and like back channels, approved strike areas, and then a media campaign ensuring the world that like you don't seek to expand the regional war. Like, I'm the last person who wants an all-out regional war at this stage with Hezbollah. I've made my position abundantly clear over the last few weeks. I am totally against that. But how they're going about preventing the regional war is what's leading us up to a regional war. If Iran is sure that nothing they do result in a retaliatory strike by either Israel or the United States, they're going to keep striking because they know that no amount of blood is worth, apparently, a regional war to the U.S. right now. And it's the U.S., it's not Israel. You'd think killing 12 kids playing soccer on Saturday would have Nasrallah shaking, like, oh God, there's going to be a big price to pay here, but apparently all he wants to do now is kill 12 more kids playing soccer. He doesn't really care. They're going to keep firing these rockets willy-nilly. And it's gross to see. And I hope people can see through this and think about this when they go to the ballot boxes in November. Iran has given its blessings to Iraqi militias to resume hostilities against U.S. bases in Iraq and Syria. Another headline showing that there's just no deterrence to speak of in the Middle East right now. This is from a tweet according to a BBC reporter Nafisa Kanavard. Apparently, Iran has urged its militias in Iraq to resume full-scale attacks on the U.S. bases in their region. So not only is Hezbollah not deterred, but the other tentacles of the Iranian resistance axis have decided it's time for them to enter the party as well. Again, like, this is just not how deterrence works. Iran should be scared shitless, not looking to expand its operations and hostilities. Like, we are so weak, it's actually incredible. So far, there have been public statements from the Iraqi militias Kataib Hezbollah and Nujaba that have publicly stated that the ceasefire that was given to the direct orders for their ceasefire was given to them by the Ayatollah back in like December or January, that ceasefire is over. And the IRGC has also stated that militias that didn't join in previously will join in now. So come on, like, seriously? It was Kataib Hezbollah in their drone that killed 3 U.S. servicemen at Tower 22 in Jordan in December. Things have been relatively quiet since then. Again, apparently an order from the Ayatollah came like to do a ceasefire following U.S. retaliatory strikes post Tower 22. But now they're saying that Lebanon and Hezbollah is Iran's red line. So I know we don't want a regional war, but at a certain point, if every resistance axis proxy is activated and firing at U.S. and Israeli positions, how can we avoid one? Like, I'd prefer no regional war and scaring Iran by threatening its existence to prevent such a war. But again, this administration doesn't seem very excited about a show of strength. So I really just hope more Americans and Israelis don't lose their lives while this back and forth goes on. And last headline, CNN reports based on U.S. intelligence that Iran is using a covert campaign to undermine Trump. So if we're just waiting for policy to change in 6 months, Iran's doing everything they can do to prevent that administration change from happening. So I wonder if Ayatollah Khamenei was able to make it to the White Dudes for Kamala Zoom call last night, because it seems like that's what side he's on. Honestly, I hate it when people use which adversaries want or don't want certain U.S. politicians to be in charge as their argument to vote for people. The majority of Americans vote based on, domestic policy, and our adversaries, quite frankly, would be okay with whoever takes over. Russia and China just want to exploit division in the U.S. Like, they don't really care. We're divisive and, politically charged whether Trump is in office or Kamala is in office. So they can exploit either scenario. But it's interesting that it's Iran that is a notable exception to this. And clearly, it sounds like they want this $60 billion of sanctions waivers to keep coming through that have come under the Biden administration in the last 3.5 years. And they believe that Trump would reinstate his maximum pressure campaign once again, potentially bankrupting the mullahs and making regime change from within Iran much more likely. Without that $60 billion floating around the Iranian economy, they'll have less to fund their proxies, meaning more stability and less hostility throughout the region and the resistance axis proxies. I'm not sure why Democrats don't see things that way, but it makes sense. If we want peace in the Middle East, we should probably stop funding terror militias that direct attacks at Israel and our bases, which prompt us to respond. So I guess this is happening. The intelligence reports are not saying how Iran is trying to take down Trump or how they're doing that, but they've done that before too. So in 2020, U.S. intelligence reports came out that Hezbollah was using its online network to try and dissuade U.S. voters from choosing Trump. We spent 4 years looking over reports that Russia tried to influence the U.S. election in favor of Trump, which were all disproven by the Mueller investigation. I wonder why we didn't do a similar, unlimited funded investigation on Iran and Hezbollah's activities, trying to dissuade people from Trump. But yeah, governments do this, and especially Iran does this. Again, I think it's notable that they want the sanctions waivers to keep coming in. They'd like to, be able to kind of exist on a global stage with the United States and keep getting all that money. I'd like to reinstate maximum pressure. That's only going to happen under Trump. And also, just notably, I don't think that their efforts are going to really be meaningful or impactful on the election, but I still think that we should talk about them. So that's all for today. I'll see you again tomorrow. If you haven't checked out Don't Waste This Podcast, my true crime podcast about a story I was involved with, I will put that trailer at the end of this episode. But for now, thank you all. Have a great rest of your day. An Excelsior Studios original production.
A Hamilton County woman is facing serious charges accused of scamming several people out of rental homes.
April 26, 2023 was a normal day for most in the suburbs of Indianapolis, but it was shaping up to be a very bad day for 25-year-old Megan Stoner, who was notified of a warrant out for her arrest.
9 charges for corrupt business influence fraud, where the loss is between $750,000 and $50,000, and theft.
And unfortunately for Megan, she would not be navigating her newfound legal troubles in private, because a community of hundreds who had been quietly watching her for years was assembling on the internet to discuss their experiences with her, which ranged from bizarre to dangerous to outright criminal, arguably worse than what Megan had been charged with.
Basically what she did was emotionally manipulated and I'll say abused even me for about nearly these 10 years.
And she will suck you dry. Any inch you give her, she just takes them out.
Google number after Google number. You block the one, she's not done yet. She's going to get that last word.
The second you let her in, she takes over. And I would wake up to 20, 30, 40 notifications. She was scrolling back through things from my high school.
He's a dangerous human being.
And the strangest thing of all is, as her case unfolded, she continued to interact with this online community, which she called her haters, which was made up of business owners she had scammed, politicos from throughout the country that she had solicited for donations, a network of evangelical pastors located outside of the United States, a local brigade of moms who had called out her antics in Facebook groups for years, and even a sex shaman ended up coming together to solve crimes that she had not yet been caught for, and were able to catch her after she ran from the police for a month and finally put her in jail. So, how did this self-described political consultant, mental health advocate, teacher, and sexual assault survivor get into this mess in the first place? And how much of her story that she had told of herself on social media for years was actually true? That's what we'll explore here every Thursday on Don't Waste This Fucking Podcast, the story of Megan Stoner.